welcome to News. My name is Artena Collins.
And I'm Camille Isom.
And today we will be discussing the topic Civil War. Now you may be thinking, why is this important? Well, the answer is, I have to take this class to graduate, and this is a project in it. Shout out to you, Mr. Tilson.
Anyways.
Okay, so today, like I said, we'll be discussing the Civil War. So the North actually had a much greater advantage in the South when it came to the Civil War. For example, the North had a much higher population. They actually contained 71% of the U.S. population during the time, while the South contained the remaining 29%. This provided easier access to soldiers and increased their army for the Civil War. Likewise, this meant that the South had a much smaller military defense for the upcoming war, which also meant that their defense was not as well kept as the North.
That sucks.
Tragic. So next we'll be explaining the differences between the North and the South's industrial exports. The North's exports and the South's exports consisted of very different investments and exports. The North's industrial advances were occurring much quicker than the South's, resulting in the North having much more money. The North didn't have any major exports like the South, but they invested in railroads, factories, and banks. The South, on the other hand,
made their money from slave labor and exports such as cotton and agricultural goods. While the South was 66% of U.S. exports, the North was a mere 34%. Now, the differences between the North and the South's functioning transportation. The North and the South had differences between their railroad systems. The North had a very well-run railroad system, 71% of U.S. railroads, which made it useful for them to transfer various things like food, their army, and any resources that they needed.
wow.
Yeah. The South had a much less efficient railroad system, which included only 29% of the U.S. railroad systems. The South's railroad system resulted in a lack of space to transport food, their army, and any resources that they needed.
You know, that's so interesting. I actually remember learning about this back when I was in school in 2008. I'm a Harvard graduate.
Oh, Harvard dropout?
You did not have to do me like that. Anyways, we're moving on now.
Anyways.
Hello, and welcome to Couch News. So, we're going to continue the topic of the Civil War and talk about Lincoln, the habeas corpus, the Emancipation Proclamation, the Gettysburg Address, and the Second Inaugural Address. Interesting. You know, I've actually heard all of those names before, but do a lot of people actually know what they're about?
No.
All right, well. So, we're going to be explaining the purpose of Lincoln getting rid of the habeas corpus. So, habeas corpus actually means the right to a trial before a final arrest. Lincoln actually got rid of the habeas corpus after Mr. John Merriman attempted to stop the Union from relocating from Baltimore to Washington, in which Lincoln wanted to stop him from getting rid of the habeas. Ooh. Yeah, that's not right. So, Lincoln wanted to stop Merriman, claiming that getting rid of the habeas corpus would ensure a win against the South in the midst of the Civil War. So next we're going to be explaining the purpose of Lincoln putting out the Emancipation Proclamation. The Emancipation Proclamation was a threat made by Lincoln, stating that any states that did not give up their rebellion against the North would have their slaves set free. This was to lessen the threat of the Confederation or any rebelling states that were against the Union. You know, I don't think that was such a bad idea. Any rebelling states get their slaves set free.
Yeah.
I think it was a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay, so next we're going to be explaining the purpose of Lincoln presenting the Gettysburg Address.
Okay. So the Gettysburg Address was presented on November 19th, 1863 by Lincoln as a dedication to the Union soldiers that were killed in the Battle of Gettysburg, which is tragic. We lost a lot.
We lost a lot.
Lincoln felt as if we did bad due to the crowd's reaction. So they were like bored. Very bored.
Boo! That's what they were doing.
But then like the next day they went like viral. So. Okay, so now explaining the purpose of Lincoln presenting the second inaugural address. Delivered on March 4th, Lincoln gave his speech to the second inaugural inauguration as president within the last few days of the Civil War.
back to the script. We have Ulysses S. Grant, Robert E. Lee, Thomas Stonewall Jackson, William T. Sherman, and Jefferson Davis, and we will be explaining their influences.
Yes. So, we're going to be explaining who Thomas Jackson was and his influence.
Whoa, wait! We're gonna have to cut to that next time. We can learn them today.
That's what I was saying, so I paused.
Gosh, we'll see you guys next time.
Bye. Hi guys, it's Camille and we're for News on the Block. So today we're going to be interviewing someone that I don't know at all, okay? And we're going to talk about the Civil War. Here's someone I don't know at all.
Oh my goodness, this is such a coincidence.
So what do you know about the Civil War?
I actually know quite a bit. You know, I majored in history when I went to Stanford. It was actually a really cool thing.
After that wonderful interview, we're going to go to somewhere else. So, we're going to explain who Ulysses S. Grant, Robert E. Lee, Thomas Stonewall Jackson, William T. Sherman, and Jefferson Davis are and their influences. So, we're going to explain who Thomas Jackson was and his influence. Thomas Jackson was a commander of Robert E. Lee's Confederate Army. He was accomplished with his army winning the battles of Bull Run. Now we're going to explain who Robert E. Lee was and his influence. Robert Lee was a general that led the Confederates in the military. He was a very reputable man that supported the Confederation. When the South joined the Civil War, Lee resigned and returned home with the knowledge that the Confederation was at a great disadvantage. He left them to suffer. He had a strong sense of leadership, which helped the Confederates come up with a military plan that was useful despite their lack of soldiers and supplies. Now for explaining who Ulysses S. Grant was and his influence. Ulysses S. Grant led the Union in war as a U.S. general and commander and later on served as president after Lincoln's death. While serving as general during the Civil War, Grant was very committed and was able to lead the Union in victory and reunite the United States of America with his aggressive approaches. After the war was over, he was elected as the 18th president and focused mainly on rebuilding the United States as well as making sure that black slaves were now free, are allowed to have civil rights like everyone else. Now we're going to switch over to my co-host.
Now we'll be explaining Jefferson Davis and his influence. So Jefferson Davis became president for the Confederates when they decided to succeed prior to Lincoln's election. Davis had a hard time with trying to support the South during the war as he struggled with management of the Confederate States of America, from management of their economy to management of keeping the South together as a whole. Despite him having a hard time trying to manage the South, he was successful when coming up with strategies for when going into battles. Now we'll be explaining who William T. Sherman was and his influence. So William T. Sherman led the Union alongside Grant as a general and is well renowned for his aggressive strategies, such as burning Atlanta and taking 60,000 troops to march. During the Civil War in May, Sherman took his troops to Atlanta, which was a major target, and he ended up burning the city, leaving Generals Johnston and Hood with no choice but to allow Sherman to capture the city. Later on in November, Sherman led his troops from Atlanta to the ports of Savannah, where they attacked Southern troops, causing many Georgians to be fearful of the Union troops. This event allowed the Union to put an end to the Civil War, with the Unions taking the win. Okay guys, hi and welcome to news featuring me on a walk because my parents say I don't go outside enough. So, today we'll be learning the importance of Fort Sumter, Antietam, Vicksburg, Gettysburg, and Atlanta, and the roles that they played in the Civil War. So the significance of Fort Sumter. Fort Sumter was where the first battle of the Civil War occurred. Fort Sumter was still under construction in Charleston Harbor, South Carolina, when South Carolina seceded from the Union and caused a commotion when news of Anderson occupying the unfinished fort had made its way to the Union. The Union was unaware about Anderson occupying the fort until a ship full of supplies intended for the fort had found him and his troops there. You can hear mowing in the background. All right, so
Not only did the problem only get worse when Amsterdam refused to abandon the fort, but he was also low on things such as food and other necessities. Once Lincoln decided to send out supplies, battle was assured to be on the way due to the declaring of, if resupplying were to be admitted, the ships already there on behalf of the Union would attack. I just got really close to my face with the camera there. All right, so I don't know how far I'm gonna walk. I guess I should walk to the park. All right, so they asked Anderson to surrender once more, and due to his refusal again, the first fires were made. Explain the significance of Antietam. So Antietam occurred at Antietam Creek and is claimed to be the most vicious battle of American history. However, Gettysburg changed minds. With only 8 hours into the battle, more than 15,000 soldiers were killed, with 2,600 dead in the center of Antietam Creek. Although many believe that no one really won this battle, the Union still took victory for this bloody and harsh battle. That's a really nice car. All right, so we're going to be explaining the significance of Vicksburg as we're still walking. The Union was being led by Ulysses S. Grant, and they were fighting for Vicksburg on the Mississippi River. The Union wanted to control Vicksburg to have control of the river. Eventually, the Union won the battle against the Confederates, who were led by John C. Pemberton. Remember that name. Write it down. Write it down. Take notes. Now I'll be explaining the significance of Gettysburg. The Battle of Gettysburg was the most important battle of the Civil War, according to many historians. The Battle of Gettysburg took place in 1863 from July 1st to July 5th. In the end, Robert E. Lee's Confederate Army had beat the Army of Potomac at Chancellorsville. This is the bloodiest battle of the American Civil War. Lastly, the significance of Atlanta, hometown. Whoop, whoop. That was cringy. All right. So due to being a large factor of military operation and the supply route for the Confederates, the Union targeted the city. In 1864, General T. William Sherman, I said that backwards, General William T. Sherman managed to conquer Atlanta. All public buildings and anything important to the Confederate Army was destroyed and burned down.
Well guys, that concludes our news report. Hopefully you learned a lot about the Civil War, from the people who played a big part in the war, to why the differences between the North and the South are important. Don't forget this information. It is key that you keep this information locked inside of your head. Unless you want to fail and be a Harvard dropout, like my co-host. Reporting for news with Artena and Camille, this is Farewell. Wait. Did y'all really think we would let y'all go without seeing bloopers?
And today we will be discussing the Civil War. So, you may be thinking, why is this important? Well, the answer is, it's required as a credit for me to graduate. So, here we are doing this project. Shout out to you, Mr. Tilson. Okay.
On March 4th, Lincoln gave his speech to the second inaugural.
You can put another one. Air.
Hey guys, it's Camille again, and we're here for News on the Block. So today, I'll be interviewing a person that I do not know at all about the Civil War. Okay, let's go. Look, it's someone that I don't know.
Hi, am I gonna be on TV?
Yeah. Okay, so what do you know about the Civil War?
Actually, I know quite a bit about the Civil War.
Oh.
I actually majored in history when I went to Stanford.
That's so great. That was such a great interview. Now for my co-host.
And that is the end. We have finished the project. I'm done. I'm going back inside to do my other homework. I'm tired. And yeah, hopefully we get a good grade. Bye.